The morning sun rose over New Haven like it had every day for the past 3 years. Commander Jake Morrison stood at the window of the control tower, watching the mining trucks roll across the dusty ground. The planet looked peaceful. Nobody would guess that this small world held one of the most valuable things in the galaxy. New Haven was far from Earth, very far. It took 6 months to travel there, even with the fastest ships humans had built, but the trip was worth it. The planet had trilithium in its core. Just 1 pound of trilithium could power a spaceship for 20 years. The Galactic Council had given humans permission to mine here. They signed papers that said this was human territory now. Jake had been in charge of the colony for 2 years. He was a good leader. The people trusted him. He made sure everyone was safe and happy. The colony had grown to 50,000 people. They had families here. Children played in the parks. Old people sat on benches and talked about Earth. It felt like home. Dr. Lisa Hunter worked in the science lab near the mountains. She studied the plants and animals on New Haven. The planet had strange purple trees that grew in spirals. Small, blue creatures that looked like rabbits lived in the rocks. Lisa loved her work. She wrote reports about everything she found. Scientists on Earth read her work and learned about this new world. Lisa's husband Pete ran the food farms. He grew vegetables in big glass buildings. The soil on New Haven was not good for Earth plants, so Pete had to be smart about farming. He mixed Earth soil with local dirt. He found the right balance of water and light. Now the farms grew enough food for everyone in the colony. Pete and Lisa had been married for 8 years. They came to New Haven together to start a new life. They wanted to have children someday. They talked about raising kids on this peaceful planet, far from the noise and crowds of Earth. Captain Amy Rodriguez flew around the planet in her ship, the U's Guardian. It was the newest and strongest ship in the human fleet. Amy's job was to protect the colony. She flew patrol routes every day. She watched for trouble. But there was never any trouble. New Haven was quiet and safe. Amy had been a pilot for 15 years. She had flown missions to Mars and the asteroid belt. She knew how to fight if she had to, but she hoped she would never have to fight here. The colony was full of normal people who just wanted to live their lives in peace. The Guardian had a crew of 200 people. They were good soldiers and smart officers. They trained every day to stay ready. But deep down, they all hoped their training would never be needed. They liked the quiet life around New Haven. The mining operation was the biggest human project outside of Earth's solar system. Giant machines dug deep into the planet's surface. They pulled out rocks that contained trilithium. The rocks went to processing plants where workers separated the trilithium from other materials. It was hard work, but the pay was good. The miners worked in teams. They looked out for each other. Safety was the most important thing. Commander Morrison made sure everyone followed the rules. He did not want anyone to get hurt. The trilithium was valuable, but people were more important. Every month, cargo ships came to New Haven. They picked up containers of trilithium and took them back to Earth. The trilithium would power human ships for decades. It would help humans explore more of the galaxy. It would make life better for everyone. The colony had schools for the children. The teachers came from Earth to help kids learn. The children studied normal subjects like math and reading. They also learned about space and other planets. Some of them dreamed of becoming pilots or scientists when they grew up. There was a hospital in the colony. Dr. Kevin Walsh ran the medical center. He took care of people who got sick or hurt. Most of the time, people just had normal problems, like broken bones or the flu. Dr. Walsh was glad the colony was so healthy. The people of New Haven talked to their families on Earth every week. The messages took a long time to travel through space. but it was worth the wait to hear news from home. Parents told their children about life on Earth. Children told their grandparents about their new planet. Commander Morrison sent reports to Earth every month. He told the government how much trilithium they had mined. He reported on the health and happiness of the colonists. He always said the same thing. Everything was going well on New Haven. The Galactic Council met on a space station far from New Haven. Representatives from many different alien species gathered to talk about trade and politics. Humans were still new to the Council. They had only been members for 5 years. Most of the alien species were peaceful. They liked to trade goods and share knowledge. The Altarian Federation grew food on dozens of planets. The Centauri Trade Union moved cargo between star systems. The Vegan Republic built beautiful art and music. Everyone got along well, but some species were different. The Zephyrian Empire controlled many star systems. They had a powerful military. They took what they wanted from weaker species. Other aliens were afraid of the Zephyrians. They tried to stay away from Zephyrian territory. Chancellor Vex Kronos ruled the Zephyrian Empire. He was cruel and greedy. He believed that strong people should take everything from weak people. He had been watching human expansion into the galaxy. He was not happy about humans finding trilithium. The Zephyrians had been looking for trilithium for many years. They needed it to power their warships. When they heard that humans had found a planet full of trilithium, they became angry. They thought humans were too weak to control such a valuable resource. Admiral Nexus Thorn commanded the Zephyrian 7th Fleet. He was a ruthless military leader. He had conquered 12 star systems for the Empire. He enjoyed destroying the ships of other species. He liked to see fear in the eyes of his enemies. Chancellor Kronos called Admiral Thorn to the capital ship. They talked about the human colony on New Haven. Kronos pointed to star charts on the wall. He showed Thorn where the human territory was located. These humans are weak, Kronos said. They have no real military. They have one small ship protecting 50,000 people. They don't deserve to control trilithium. Admiral Thorn smiled. He had been hoping for a new conquest. What are your orders, Chancellor? Take the system, Kronos said. Kill anyone who fights back. Make the rest work in the mines. The trilithium belongs to the Zephyrian Empire now. Meanwhile, on New Haven, people continued their daily lives. They did not know that the Zephyrian Empire was planning to attack them. They did not know that their peaceful world was about to change forever. Jake Morrison finished his morning coffee and prepared for another normal day. Lisa Hunter packed her equipment for a research trip to the southern continent. Pete Hunter checked on his vegetable farms. Captain Rodriguez started her daily patrol around the planet. None of them knew that Zephyrian warships were already moving through space toward New Haven. The attack would come soon. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when someone threatened human families. The cost of that lesson would be higher than anyone could imagine. The attack came without warning on a Tuesday morning. Captain Amy Rodriguez was flying her regular patrol route around New Haven when her ship's sensors started screaming. 12 large ships had just appeared near the planet. They were not human ships. Already into New Haven control, Amy said into her radio. We have unknown vessels entering our space. They are not responding to our signals. Commander Jake Morrison was drinking coffee in the control tower when Amy's message came through. He put down his cup and walked to the main screen. The radar showed 12 red dots moving toward the planet. They were moving fast. Try to contact them again, Jake told Amy. Ask them what they want. Amy switched to the Universal Communication Channel. Unknown ships. This is Captain Rodriguez of the U's Guardian. You are in human territory. Please identify yourselves and state your purpose. There was no answer. The 12 ships kept coming closer. Amy could see them now through her cockpit window. They were dark gray with sharp edges. They looked like weapons built to kill. Admiral Nexus Thorn stood on the bridge of his flagship. He watched the small human ship trying to contact him. He laughed. The human ship was tiny compared to his war vessels. It would be easy to destroy. All ships, prepare for attack, Thorn ordered. Destroy the human ship first. Then we will deal with the colony. The Zephyrian ships opened fire without warning. Bright red beams of energy shot through space toward the Guardian. Amy saw the weapons firing and tried to dodge. She pushed her ship into a steep dive toward the planet. New Haven Control, we are under attack, Amy shouted into her radio. Repeat, we are under attack. Get everyone to the shelters. The Guardian shook as enemy fire hit its shields. Amy's crew ran to their battle stations. They had trained for this moment, but they never thought it would actually happen. The Guardian was a strong ship, but it was only one ship against 12. Jake Morrison pressed the colony's emergency alarm. Red lights flashed everywhere. A loud siren wailed across the settlements. People stopped what they were doing and ran toward the underground shelters. Dr. Lisa Hunter was in her lab when the alarm started. She grabbed her research notes and ran outside. The sky above New Haven was filled with bright flashes of light. She could see the Guardian fighting 12 enemy ships. Her heart pounded with fear. Pete Hunter was in the vegetable farms when he heard the alarm. He ran to the nearest shelter, helping elderly people along the way. Children were crying. Parents were shouting. Everyone was scared and confused. In space, the Guardian fought desperately against the Zephyrian fleet. Amy's crew fired everything they had at the enemy ships. Their weapons hit the alien vessels, but did not do much damage. The Zephyrian ships were too strong. Captain, our shields are failing, the weapons officer yelled. Keep firing, Amy ordered. We have to protect the colony. The Guardian's shields collapsed under the heavy enemy fire. The next blast punched through the ship's hull. Explosions rocked the vessel. Smoke filled the corridors. People were thrown to the floor. Amy knew her ship was dying. She had to send a message to Earth before it was too late. She ran to the communications station and started recording. This is Captain Amy Rodriguez of the U's Guardian, she said. We are under attack by unknown hostile forces at New Haven. 12 enemy ships. They attacked without warning. The colony is in danger. Tell Earth what happened here. Tell them we fought to the end. She sent the message through the quantum relay system. It would take time to reach Earth, but it would get there. Earth would know what happened to New Haven. The Guardian exploded in a ball of fire. Amy Rodriguez and her crew of 200 people died instantly. The brave ship that had protected New Haven for 3 years was gone. Admiral Thorn watched the human ship explode. He felt satisfied. The humans had been easier to defeat than he expected. Now, he would deal with the colony. Begin orbital bombardment, Thorn ordered. Destroy their military installations first. Then target their population centers. The Zephyrian ships turned their weapons toward New Haven. They fired massive energy beams at the planet's surface. The beams hit the ground like giant hammers. Buildings exploded. The Earth shook with each impact. Commander Morrison watched in horror as his colony was destroyed from space. The enemy ships were bombing everything. The power plant exploded in a mushroom cloud. The communication center was vaporized. The hospital was hit by 3 direct blasts. Get everyone deeper underground, Morrison shouted. Move to the mining tunnels. The colonists ran through the underground passages. The tunnel walls shook with each explosion above. Dust fell from the ceiling. Some tunnels collapsed, trapping people inside. Dr. Lisa Hunter was helping evacuate the school when a blast hit the building above them. The roof caved in, She pushed 3 children toward the exit, but falling debris trapped her legs. She could not move. "Go!" she yelled to the children. "Get out of here!" Pete Hunter heard about his wife on the radio. He tried to reach the school, but the passages were blocked by rubble. He dug with his bare hands, trying to reach her. Other colonists helped him dig. They worked frantically as the bombardment continued above. They found Lisa under tons of concrete and steel. She was still alive, but badly hurt. Pete held her hand as medics tried to help her. "Take care of the children," Lisa whispered. "Make sure they get out safely." Those were her last words. Dr. Lisa Hunter died trying to save children she had never met. She was one of thousands who died that day trying to protect others. The bombardment lasted 6 hours. When it finally stopped, New Haven was a wasteland. The beautiful colony was gone. The farms were destroyed. The mines were collapsed. Smoke rose from 100 fires across the planet. Of the 50,000 people who had lived on New Haven, only 3,000 survived. Most of them were hurt. Many were dying. They hid in the deep mining tunnels, afraid to come out. Admiral Thorne sent landing ships to the planet. Zephyrian soldiers walked through the ruins of the colony. They looked for survivors. When they found them, they dragged them out of the tunnels. The survivors were forced to work in the mines. The Zephyrians wanted the trilithium, and they did not care how many humans died digging it out. They beat people who worked too slowly. They killed people who tried to escape. Commander Morrison was one of the survivors. He had lost his arm in the bombing, but he was still alive. The Zephyrians made him watch as they executed 10 colonists who had tried to hide food from the soldiers. "You will work, or you will die," a Zephyrian officer told him. "Your choice." Morrison looked at the burned ruins of his colony. He thought about all the people who had died. He thought about Amy Rodriguez and her crew. He thought about Lisa Hunter and the children she had saved. "We will work," he said quietly. But inside, he was planning. He would find a way to get a message to Earth. He would tell them what happened here. He would make sure the galaxy knew about this crime. Admiral Thorne stood in the ruins of the colony's main building. He recorded a message to send to Earth. He wanted the humans to know who had defeated them. "People of Earth," he said, "your colony on New Haven is now property of the Zephyrian Empire. Your people are weak. Your ships are weak. This planet belongs to us now. If you try to take it back, we will destroy every human world we can find. You have been warned." The message was sent toward Earth through the same quantum relay system that had carried Amy Rodriguez's distress call. It would reach Earth in a few days. The people of Earth would learn that their peaceful colony had been destroyed by an unprovoked attack. The Zephyrian Empire had made a terrible mistake. They thought humans were weak because they were peaceful. They thought humans would accept the loss of New Haven and do nothing about it. They were wrong. The attack on New Haven had awakened something in humanity that had been sleeping for generations. Something that had made humans the dominant species on a dangerous planet. Something that other species in the galaxy were about to learn about. The cost of that lesson would be higher than anyone could imagine. The first message reached Earth on a quiet Thursday morning. Captain Amy Rodriguez's distress call came through the quantum relay system 6 days after the attack. The message was short and filled with static, but every word was clear. "This is Captain Amy Rodriguez of the UES Guardian. We are under attack by unknown hostile forces at New Haven. 12 enemy ships. They attacked without warning. The colony is in danger. Tell Earth what happened here. Tell them we fought to the end." The message played in the communication center at Earth Defense Command. The technician who received it sat in shock for a moment. Then he ran to find his supervisor. Within an hour, the message was playing in the hill. Office of President Helen Carter. She listened to Amy's final words 3 times. Her face grew darker with each replay. "Get me Admiral Scott Parker," she said. "Get me the Defense Council. Get me everyone." 2 hours later, Admiral Thorne's message arrived. The Zephyrian commander's words were cold and threatening. He talked about weak humans and warned Earth not to try to take back New Haven. President Carter gathered the Human Colonial Council in the emergency meeting room. Representatives from Mars, Luna, and every human colony watched the recordings of both messages. The room was silent when the videos ended. 50,000 people, President Carter said quietly. They murdered 50,000 innocent people. Admiral Scott Parker stood up. He was the commander of the Human Defense Fleet. He had fought in the war against the Mars rebels 20 years ago. He knew about violence and death. But this was different. This was murder. "We have 47 combat ships ready for immediate deployment," Parker said. "We can have them at New Haven in 6 months." 47 ships against 12? Asked the representative from Mars. "That should be enough." "No," Parker said grimly. "The Zephyrians will send more ships by then. And this isn't about winning one battle. This is about sending a message to the galaxy." Dr. Kevin Walsh was the head of human military research. He had been working on new weapons for the defense fleet. Most of his projects were still experimental. But the attack on New Haven changed everything. "We need to accelerate all research programs," Walsh said. "The kinetic bombardment systems, the plasma torpedoes, the shield penetrators. We need them all ready in 6 months." President Carter looked around the room. These were smart people, good people. They had spent their lives building a peaceful future for humanity. Now they were talking about war. "What about the Galactic Council?" asked the representative from Luna. "Surely they will condemn this attack." "The Galactic Council is weak," Parker said. "They will send a strongly worded message and do nothing else. We are on our own." The meeting lasted 12 hours. They made plans for war. They talked about building new ships and training new soldiers. They talked about things that peaceful people should never have to discuss. But they also talked about something else, something that made them different from other species in the galaxy. They talked about justice. "This is not about revenge," President Carter said. "This is about protecting innocent people. The Zephyrians think they can murder families and enslave survivors. They are wrong." The news of the attack spread across Earth within hours. People watched the recordings of Amy Rodriguez's final message. They saw the pictures of New Haven before and after the attack. They heard the voices of the survivors who had managed to send messages from the ruined colony. The reaction was swift and unanimous. Humans across the solar system demanded action. They volunteered to join the military. They donated money for new ships. They worked extra shifts in the factories to build weapons. Captain Daniel Brooks was a merchant pilot who had been scheduled to visit New Haven the week after the attack. Instead, he found the planet in ruins. He managed to rescue 50 survivors from the mining tunnels. He brought them back to Earth. The survivors told their stories. Commander Morrison, with his missing arm, described the orbital bombardment. Pete Hunter talked about watching his wife die, trying to save children. An old man named Carl spoke about watching Zephyrian soldiers execute his grandson for dropping a piece of equipment. The stories were broadcast across the galaxy. The Galactic Council held emergency meetings. The Altarian Federation issued a statement condemning the attack. The Centauri Trade Union imposed economic sanctions on the Zephyrian Empire, but the galaxy's response was weak. The Altarians condemned the attack, but did nothing to stop it. The Centauri sanctions were easily avoided. The Galactic Council called for diplomatic talks while the Zephyrians continued enslaving human survivors. Admiral Parker met with the survivors in a hospital on Earth. He listened to their stories. He looked at their injuries. He saw the pain in their eyes. "We will get you home," he promised them. "We will make this right." Commander Morrison grabbed Parker's arm with his remaining hand. "They made us watch," he said. "They made us watch. While they killed the children who could not work fast enough. They laughed while they did it." That night, Admiral Parker called his senior officers together. They met in the war room at Defense Command. The walls were covered with star charts and tactical displays. "The Zephyrians think we are weak," Parker said. "They think we will accept the loss of New Haven and do nothing. They are about to learn how wrong they are." The industrial base of the human solar system shifted into war production. Factories on Mars that had been building mining equipment started making weapons. Shipyards around Jupiter that built cargo vessels began constructing warships. The asteroid belt became a massive weapons factory. Humans had been mining asteroids for 50 years. Now they used that technology to build kinetic bombardment systems. Rocks from space would become humanity's most terrible weapons. Dr. Walsh's research teams worked around the clock. They developed new types of plasma torpedoes that could punch through any shield. They created electronic warfare systems that could disable enemy computers. They built weapons that the galaxy had never seen before. President Carter addressed the human colonies in a speech that was broadcast to every human settlement. "The Zephyrians attacked our families," she said. "They murdered our children. They enslaved our people. They think we are weak because we are peaceful. They are about to learn the difference between weakness and restraint." The speech was also broadcast to the Galactic Council. Representatives from dozens of species watched as the human president continued. "We did not seek this war," Carter said, "but we will finish it. The Zephyrians will learn that there are consequences for attacking innocent people. The galaxy will learn that humanity protects its own." The speech ended with words that would become famous throughout the galaxy. "They sought to make us kneel. Instead, they have awakened something that should have remained sleeping. The galaxy will learn why Earth's children do not forgive, and they do not forget." The Galactic Council was disturbed by the human response. They had expected humanity to negotiate. They had expected diplomatic protests and economic sanctions. They had not expected a species-wide mobilization for war. The Altarian ambassador contacted President Carter. "Surely you do not intend to escalate this conflict," he said. "War will only lead to more suffering. The suffering has already begun." Carter replied, 50,000 innocent people are dead. 3,000 survivors are enslaved. The escalation started when the Zephyrians attacked our colony. The Centauri Trade Union offered to mediate between humans and Zephyrians. President Carter's response was simple. "There is nothing to mediate. The Zephyrians will return our people and surrender, or we will take them back by force." Admiral Parker's fleet grew larger every day. New ships arrived from the shipyards. Volunteer crews signed up faster than ships could be built. The human military was transforming from a small defense force into something the galaxy had never seen. The Zephyrians were not worried. They had conquered dozens of star systems. They had defeated species with much larger militaries than humanity. Chancellor Kronos laughed when he heard about the human war preparations. "Let them come," he told Admiral Thorne. "We will destroy their ships and enslave their survivors. Then we will take their home worlds too." But some species in the galaxy were not so sure. The Vegan Republic had fought the Zephyrians 50 years ago. They had lost badly. But they remembered something about the way humans had responded to the attack. "I have never seen a species react like this," the vegan ambassador told the Galactic Council. "Other species negotiate when they are attacked. They try to minimize their losses. The humans are doing the opposite. They are preparing for total war." The Zephyrians had made a critical mistake. They had judged humanity by their peaceful nature. They had thought that peaceful people were weak people. They had confused restraint with inability. They were about to learn the difference. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when someone threatened human families. The lesson would be written in fire and blood across the stars. The cost of that lesson would be higher than anyone could imagine. 6 months after the attack on New Haven, the human fleet was ready. Admiral Scott Parker stood on the bridge of the UE's Vengeance, humanity's newest and most powerful warship. Around him in space, 200 human vessels waited for the order. To attack, the fleet was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. The ships were built for war, not exploration. They carried weapons that could destroy entire cities. They had shields that could survive direct hits from enemy battleships. But most importantly, they were crewed by humans who had one goal: justice for New Haven. "All ships, this is Admiral Parker," he said into his communicator. "Today we go to war not for conquest, but for our families. Today we show the galaxy that innocent people are not defenseless. Today we begin the reckoning." The fleet jumped to hyperspace. The journey to New Haven took 3 days. During that time, the human crews prepared for battle. They checked their weapons. They studied their targets. They thought about the 50,000 people who had died 6 months ago. Captain Susan Collins commanded the rescue ship U.E. Mercy. Her mission was different from the warships. She was there to save the survivors, who were still enslaved on New Haven. She had medical teams and supplies ready to help the 3,000 people who had been forced to work in the mines. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Bell was the fleet's tactical officer. He had spent 6 months developing new strategies for space combat. The Zephyrians were used to fighting species that used traditional tactics. Humans were about to show them something different. "The Zephyrians expect us to fight like the other species they have conquered," Bell explained to his officers. "They expect us to form battle lines and trade shots until one side retreats. We are not going to do that." The human fleet used tactics. That came from Earth's history. They used surprise attacks and guerrilla warfare. They used the asteroid fields around New Haven as cover. They attacked from multiple directions at once. When the human fleet arrived at New Haven, they found 12 Zephyrian ships in orbit around the planet. Admiral Thorne was still there, using the human survivors as slaves to mine trilithium. He thought he was safe. He was wrong. "Zephyrian ships, this is Admiral Parker of the Human Defense Fleet," Parker broadcast. "You are occupying human territory. Illegally. You have murdered innocent civilians and enslaved survivors. Surrender now or face the consequences." Admiral Thorne laughed when he heard the message. 12 ships against 200? The humans are braver than I expected, but they are still going to die. Thorne opened fire first. His ships launched massive energy beams at the human fleet, but the humans were ready. They scattered in all directions, using tactics that confused the Zephyrians. Instead of fighting in formation, the human ships attacked individually. They used the asteroid belt as cover, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. They struck fast and hard, then vanished before the Zephyrians could return fire. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Human ships flew through asteroid fields at high speed, using the rocks as shields. They coordinated their attacks with precision timing. They used electronic warfare to jam Zephyrian communications. Lieutenant Commander Bell's tactics worked perfectly. The Zephyrians could not track the human ships. Every time they tried to target a human vessel, it would disappear behind an asteroid. Every time they thought they had found a safe position, human ships would attack from a new direction. The first Zephyrian ship was destroyed within an hour. The U's thunder struck it with a barrage of kinetic projectiles, massive chunks of metal, moving at incredible speed. The Zephyrian shields could not stop them. The ship exploded in a ball of fire. 1 down, 11 to go. Admiral Parker said grimly. But the humans were not just trying to destroy the Zephyrian ships. They were also trying to save the survivors on the planet. Captain Collins took her rescue ship down to the surface while the battle raged above. The planet was still a wasteland. The beautiful colony was gone. In its place were crude mining camps where the survivors worked as slaves. The Zephyrian guards were cruel and violent. They had been torturing the humans for 6 months. Collins and her rescue teams moved quickly. They used stealth technology to avoid the Zephyrian sensors. They found the mining camps and began evacuating. The survivors. Commander Morrison was one of the first people they rescued. He had lost weight, and his remaining arm was injured from the hard labor, but he was alive. He looked at Captain Collins with tears in his eyes. "You came back," he whispered. "You actually came back. We told you we would," Collins said. "We keep our promises." The rescue operation was dangerous. Zephyrian guards tried to stop the humans from reaching the survivors. But the rescue teams were well-trained and well-armed. They fought their way through the camps, saving every person. They could find. Pete Hunter was in the deepest mine when the rescue team found him. He had been working 18 hours a day for 6 months. He was sick and weak, but he was alive. When he saw the human soldiers, he started to cry. "Lisa," he said. "Did you find my wife, Lisa?" The soldier's face was grim. "I'm sorry, sir. She didn't make it, but she died saving children. She was a hero." Pete nodded slowly. He had known Lisa was dead. He had hoped, but he had known. At least now he knew she had died doing what she loved, protecting others. In space, the battle continued. The human ships were winning, but the Zephyrians were fighting desperately. They knew they were losing, but they refused to surrender. The second Zephyrian ship was destroyed by a coordinated attack from 5 human vessels. They surrounded it and fired at the same time. The ship's shields failed and it exploded. Admiral Thorne was getting angry. His ships were being destroyed one by one. The humans were using tactics he had never seen before. They were fighting like wild animals, not like civilized beings. "All ships, focus fire on the human command vessel," Thorne ordered. "Kill their admiral and the rest will surrender." But the humans had planned for this. The U's vengeance was heavily protected. When the Zephyrians concentrated their fire on it, the other human ships attacked from behind. The battle turned into a massacre. The human ships were faster and more maneuverable than the Zephyrian vessels. They used the asteroid field like a 3-dimensional maze, attacking from every direction at once. By the end of the day, 10 of the 12 Zephyrian ships were destroyed. The remaining 2 ships were heavily damaged. Admiral Thorne's flagship was burning and his crew was dying. "This is Admiral Parker," came the voice over the communications. "Surrender now and we will allow you to live. Continue fighting and you will die." Admiral Thorne had a choice. He could surrender and face capture, or he could fight to the death. He chose to fight. The last 2 Zephyrian ships died fighting. They launched everything they had at the human fleet. But it was too late. The humans had won. When the battle was over, Admiral Parker looked at the wreckage floating in space. 12 Zephyrian ships had been destroyed. Thousands of enemy soldiers were dead. The human fleet had lost only 3 ships, but the battle for New Haven was just the beginning. Admiral Parker knew that the Zephyrian Empire would send more ships. They would want revenge for their losses. The war was far from over. "All ships prepare for the next phase," Parker ordered. "We are going to find every Zephyrian base in human space. We are going to destroy them all." The rescue operation on the planet was successful. Captain Collins and her teams saved all 3,000 survivors. They brought them to the medical ships, where doctors treated their injuries and gave them food and clean clothes. The survivors were in bad shape. They had been tortured and starved for 6 months. Many of them were sick. Some of them were dying. But they were free. Commander Morrison stood on the bridge of the U's Mercy and looked down at the planet where he had lived for 2 years. The beautiful colony was gone, but the people were alive. That was what mattered. "What happens now?" he asked Admiral Parker. "Now we make sure this never happens again," Parker said. "We hunt down every Zephyrian ship in human space. We destroy their bases. We free every slave they have taken. We show the galaxy that there are consequences for attacking innocent people." The news of the victory at New Haven spread across the galaxy quickly. The Galactic Council was shocked. They had expected a long, bloody war. Instead, the humans had won a decisive victory in a single day. The Altarian Federation sent a message congratulating humanity on their victory. The Centauri Trade Union offered to help negotiate a peace treaty. The Vegan Republic warned that the Zephyrians would send more ships, but the humans were not interested in peace talks. They were interested in justice. The Zephyrians had started a war by attacking innocent people. The humans were going to finish it. Admiral Parker's fleet did not return to Earth. Instead, they began hunting for more Zephyrian ships. They had intelligence about Zephyrian bases in 3 other star systems. They were going to visit each one. The first target was a Zephyrian supply base in the Kepler system. The base provided fuel and weapons to Zephyrian ships operating in human space. It was protected by 6 warships and had a garrison of 5,000 soldiers. The human attack on the supply base was swift and merciless. They used the same tactics that had worked at New Haven. They attacked from multiple directions, using the asteroid field as cover. The Zephyrian defenders were overwhelmed. The base was destroyed in 4 hours. The war had been going on for 8 months when Chancellor Cronus finally admitted defeat. The Zephyrian Empire was collapsing. Their fleets were destroyed. Their bases were captured. Their slaves were freed. The humans had kept their promise to hunt down every Zephyrian ship in human space. But the humans had not stopped there. They had followed the Zephyrians back to their home territory. They had liberated every world the Zephyrians had conquered. They had given weapons and training to the freed slaves so they could defend themselves. Admiral Scott Parker stood on the bridge of the UE's Vengeance as his fleet approached the Zephyrian capital world. Around him, 500 human ships prepared for the final battle. The fleet had grown larger as more ships arrived from Earth. "All ships, this is Admiral Parker," he said into his communicator. "Today we end this war. Today we show the galaxy that there are consequences for attacking innocent people. Today, justice is served." The Zephyrian home fleet was waiting for them. 60 ships, the last remnants of the once mighty Zephyrian navy. They were desperate and dangerous. They knew they were going to die, but they would try to take as many humans with them as possible. Cronus watched from his palace as the human fleet approached. He had sent envoys to Admiral Parker 3 times, offering to surrender. Each time, the Admiral had given the same response: unconditional surrender. Return all prisoners. Face trial for war crimes. Cronus had refused. He was the ruler of an empire. He would not bow to these upstart humans. But now, watching 500 enemy ships fill the sky above his world, he was beginning to reconsider. The final battle was the largest in galactic history. 60 Zephyrian ships against 500 human vessels. The outcome was never in doubt, but the Zephyrians fought with the fury of the doomed Lieutenant Commander Ryan. Bell had been promoted to Admiral after his heroic actions at Proxima. He commanded a squadron of 50 ships in the assault on the capital. His tactics had become legendary throughout the galaxy. The human fleet used the same strategies that had worked before. They attacked from multiple directions. They used electronic warfare to confuse the enemy. They coordinated their movements with precision timing, but this battle was different. The Zephyrians were fighting for their home world. They fought with desperate courage, knowing that defeat meant the end of their empire. The battle lasted 12 hours. The space around the Zephyrian capital was filled with burning ships and floating debris. The humans lost 30 ships, their heaviest casualties of the war. But when the fighting ended, the Zephyrian fleet was completely destroyed. Chancellor Kronos watched his last ship explode from his palace window. The Zephyrian Empire was finished. His military was gone. His conquered worlds had been liberated. He had nothing left. A communication came from the human fleet. Admiral Parker's face appeared on the screen in Kronos' throne room. The human admiral looked tired but determined. "Chancellor Kronos," Parker said, "your fleet is destroyed. Your empire is finished. You have one choice left. Surrender now and face trial, or we will come down to the planet and drag you out of your palace." Kronos looked around his throne room. His advisors were gone. His guards had abandoned their posts. He was alone with the weight of his failures. "What terms do you offer?" Kronos asked quietly. "Unconditional surrender," Parker replied. "You will be tried for war crimes. Your military will be disbanded. Your conquered worlds will remain free. There are no other terms." Kronos had spent his life believing that might made right. He had conquered the weak and enslaved the helpless. Now he was the weak one. Now he was helpless. "I surrender," he said. The surrender of the Zephyrian Empire sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. The most powerful military force in known space had been defeated by a species that had been in space for less than a century. But the humans were not finished. Admiral Parker's fleet began visiting every world that had been conquered by the Zephyrians. They brought weapons and training to the freed populations. They helped establish new governments. They made sure the former slaves could defend themselves. Captain Susan Collins had been promoted to admiral after her heroic rescue work. She commanded the humanitarian fleet that followed the military ships. Her job was to help rebuild the worlds that had been destroyed by Zephyrian rule. On the planet Altair Prime, Collins found a population that had been enslaved for 30 years. The Altairians had forgotten how to govern themselves. They had lived in fear for so long that they did not know how to be free. "We will help you learn," Collins told the Altairian leaders. "We will teach you to defend yourselves. We will give you the tools you need to build a free society." The Altairians looked at her with wonder. "Why would you do this for us?" "We are not your people." "Because freedom is everyone's right," Collins replied. "Because no one should live in fear. Because it is the right thing to do." The liberation of the Zephyrian Empire's conquered worlds created a new balance of power in the galaxy. Dozens of species that had been enslaved for generations were suddenly free. They looked to humanity for guidance and protection. President Helen Carter faced a difficult decision. Earth could become the dominant power in the galaxy. The human military was now the strongest force in known space. Humanity could build its own empire, but that was not what humanity wanted. Carter gathered the Human Colonial Council to discuss the future. The decision they made would shape the galaxy for centuries to come. "We did not fight this war to build an empire," Carter told the council. "We fought to protect innocent people. We will continue to protect them, but we will not rule them." The Human Protection Doctrine was announced to the galaxy 3 months after the end of the war. The doctrine was simple. Humanity would respond to any attack on civilian populations with overwhelming force. They would not seek conquest, but they would not tolerate oppression. The doctrine changed everything. For the first time in galactic history, there was a species willing to fight for others without expecting anything in return. Species that had been afraid to resist their oppressors now knew that help would come if they were attacked. The Galactic Council was transformed. The old system of politics and trade agreements was replaced by something new. Species began forming mutual defense treaties. They created joint military forces to protect civilian populations. The Vegan Republic was one of the first to sign a protection agreement with humanity. Their ambassador met with President Carter on Earth to formalize the treaty. "Our people have been free for 1 year now," the ambassador said. "We owe that freedom to humanity. How can we repay this debt?" "You repay it by staying free," Carter replied. "You repay it by helping others who cannot help themselves. You repay it by making sure this never happens again." The Centauri Trade Union followed with their own protection agreement. Then the Altarian Federation. Within 2 years, 47 species had signed treaties with humanity. They formed a new kind of alliance, based not on trade or territory, but on the protection of innocent people. Commander Jake Morrison returned to New Haven 1 year after the liberation. The planet was being rebuilt, but it would never be the same. The beautiful colony was gone forever, replaced by a memorial park. Morrison walked through the memorial with Pete Hunter, one of the few survivors who chose to return. They stopped at the wall where the names of the 50,000 victims were carved in black stone. "Lisa would have liked this," Pete said, looking at his wife's name on the wall. "She always said that good people should be remembered." The memorials. Central inscription was simple but powerful. They died as free humans. Their sacrifice ensured that freedom would spread to every corner of the galaxy. Admiral Parker retired from active duty after the war. He returned to Earth and wrote a book about the conflict. The book became required reading at military academies throughout the galaxy. In the book's final chapter, Parker wrote, "The Zephyrians made a simple mistake. They confused peace with weakness. They thought that because humans were peaceful, they were helpless. They learned the difference the hard way." The book continued, "Humanity did not seek this war. We did not want to become a military power. But when innocent people were threatened, we had no choice. We fought not for conquest, but for justice. We fought not for power, but for principle." The war had lasted 1 year and 3 months. In that time, humanity had gone from a small colonial power to the dominant military force in the galaxy. But more importantly, they had established a new principle, that innocent people deserved protection, and that those who attacked them would face consequences. The galaxy learned to live with this new reality. Species that had been content to ignore oppression could no longer do so. The human protection doctrine meant that attacks on civilians would bring swift and terrible retribution. Some species resented humanity's new role. They thought humans were too aggressive, too willing to use violence. But they kept these opinions to themselves. They had seen what happened to the Zephyrian Empire. Other species welcomed humanity's protection. They had lived in fear for too long. They were grateful to have someone willing to stand up for them. Chancellor Kronos died in prison 3 years after his surrender. He was tried for war crimes and found guilty on all counts. His last words were reported to be, "I should have left the humans alone." Admiral Thorne had died in T.